Buenas noches. Vengo hoy como emisario del equipo Stones and Serpents. Sean todos bienvenidos. Filosofía, dragones y daemones, historia, la magia del sexo, fármacos y antídotos, venenos y musas, el logos, filología y viajes en el tiempo. ¿Qué tienen en común todas estas palabras? ¿Qué significan realmente? ¿Cómo se accede a estos conocimientos? ¿Y qué relación tienen con nosotros hoy? Si los antiguos vivieron antes que nosotros, ¿podemos todavía escuchar sus voces? ¿Dónde sobreviven esas voces? ¿En qué lugar quedaron registradas? Y quizás la pregunta más importante: ¿qué decían ellos de sí mismos? Esta noche abrimos esta investigación junto al doctor Ammon Hillman, filólogo clásico, investigador de textos griegos antiguos y autor de libros como The Chemical Muse, donde explora el uso de las drogas y las raíces de la civilización occidental. El doctor Ammon, además, también ha sido fundamental en el desarrollo de nuestra reciente expedición al Mediterráneo. Hoy forma parte de nuestra tripulación. Esta noche les presentamos algunos extractos de nuestra conversación. Exploramos el pasado, el presente y el futuro. Bienvenidos a History is Inquiry. So, Ammon, what does the word history originally means?
Historia in Greek is a question that you present to an oracle. And this is a special question that will give you an understanding of your future. The oracles direct civilization toward justice, toward democracy. They infamously kill tyrants. And the oracles have that power. The historia is the inquiry that we bring to our existence. And that's why it's so important that Clio, this great muse of the Greek-speaking world, was the muse of history, the muse of inquiry.
So I think that will be, if we can have like a good idea from you of what philology does. I know that you have an approach that I love, which is like, it's not about the methodology or all of that, So I would love for you to give your view of what is your art and your craft of philology, and what that is a very important tool for us to understand what is going on now, and what happened because of what happened before also. and what is the connection with it, what we lost, what we have, so philology will give
Yeah.
you that. So,
Philology is something that has included many people over a lot of time. And these people are part of the same religion. They're drawn through different fields to the formation of the spoken word, and particularly of Mother Greek. The very concept of having something mysteriously beautiful to describe is what drives that Greek tongue. And the only way to approach that ultimate divine beauty is through that language. If you do not love that language, it's because you have not seen her in her perfection. And so you get many people who are philologists over a long time, some of them more linguists, some of them more mythographers, some of them more historians, philosophers, but they're all doing the same universal art of philology. And once you comprehend how that complexity of Mother Greek lends to such a beauty, you're always going to be hooked. And whether you're a romantic author who's, writing things about Frankenstein, or whether you're a scientist who is studying the natural world, you can't help but be led through that love of those words, an understanding of how those words are the medium of the writer of everything, the one who writes out this story. Those words are her medium. That's what she uses. This is why they call her. And it's not me saying this, it's them. And that's why they refer to the muse, is because she is that authoress of the reality. So loving those words is worshiping and adoring the muse. And it's the earliest temple cult in Greece, right? The muses are all over the place. They start everything. You can't have the oracles without them. You can't have any sort of museum without them. So that philology can't just be defined dryly as a science of words. You really have to see how it has acted historically. And there are some great philologists that you may feel more comfortable calling rock stars than philologists, but they're philologists to the core. Yeah, I love it.
Ammon, and but let's say what the definition of a person that is going into an institution and is getting into it, and he will like to study ancient Greek. What will be like that kind of definition to explain, like to understand, like what, let's say I'm going to study engineering, they will give me some outline about what it's all about. So how is this philology? You have to study
If you want to become a philologist today, you have to go to a university's classics departments. And classics departments offer you a degree in classical philology. And that is the study of Greek and Latin. You have to have your Latin too. But
both.
right, but that real, the real heart, beating heart of everything is in the Greek. And so in order to do that, you have to go to a classics department at a modern university, and you get all the way through a PhD. And the PhD qualifies you to be able to translate ancient Greek over a period of about 3,000 years, right? So
3,000.
This is the degree that will allow you an avenue into philology. It is specifically classical philology. And every university's, well, the programs now are being dissolved because the people who are supposed to be learning the Greek are finding that it's very difficult. Princeton just recently cut off their own classical Greek program because their graduate students apparently are not up to the challenge. But that's the way that it is. And yeah, that's what classics is in
And
classical philology.
also, this understood this from you also, which is when we say classical, we're actually talking about like a time frame, isn't it? What is a
It
classic?
is. It is. Really, you're talking about the language that influenced modern Europe, right?
Okay.
That's basically what you're doing. The civilization, but people will say classical civilization. Then you can talk about, yeah, specific times.
Okay.
Right. So what I'm concerned with as a classical philologist, and I think what applies, what's helpful to other people, is that we're looking at Greek from 1600 BC down to about 1,000 Anno Domini. That's the real target for the Greek. So we're going all the way from Mycenaean Greek down to Byzantine Greek,
Okay.
which some people say, oh, that's too modern, right? You can't. So classical Greek's got to be older than Byzantine. And when they do, they overlook all of the Byzantine scholars, like the one that I just found last night, Nicholas. I can't remember where he was from. Nicholas of somewhere. Yeah. Anywho.
Mm. So yeah, that would be the time frame from
Yeah.
600 BC to like the end of the Byzantine Empire, like the end of
Yeah.
it, like
Yeah, the
1400.
peak, the peak of the Byzantine philosophers who tried to restore the beauty and the superiority of ancient Greek. They were actively working to try to elevate it from its direction down to commonality back up to what it was in the 5th century BC. The thing that you have to know about Greek is everybody loves the 5th century. That seems to have been the peak, both for the civilization, for the development of democracy, for all of the media, the theater, everything that was artistic.
The fifth
That's
BC,
all.
obviously.
Yeah, fifth century BC is when that's flourishing. So the height of the Greek language, ancient Greek, is considered to be 5th century Attic Greek. That's Greek from Athens. And it's not, we don't love that period because that's all we've got. We have Greek from all over the place. But the grammarians and the people who were studying the history and the basic sciences, those people are agreeing that the purest form of the language is from the 5th century. It has the least common tendencies. It's not trying to become universal. It's still trying to maintain its ability to coin terms. So that's one thing that's very important when you're studying classical philology. You have to realize that Greek has a life and goes through ages and reaches peaks. And the peak seems to have been the time when people could invent the most words.
It seems like to be very common that even Romans were kind of, it was like normal to go and train with somebody that will teach you how to explain something. So like
Oh, yeah.
like to be an orador. I don't know how to say it in
Rhetor in Greek, right? Rhetor is a rhetorical
so
person.
they will train that stuff like normal thing. So what
Yes,
this person will be teaching to this other person will be how to express the logos.
correct. Correct. how to properly use the logos. Exactly.
Okay.
And that branches then into philosophy, not only law and rhetoric, but philosophy as well,
But it has to
right?
do with some kind of ability to be able to express something with your words when
Correct.
talking.
Correct.
Okay. Like,
Correct.
but you can say an idea in many different ways.
Right. And
So
it's
okay.
and it's why barbarians are barbarians. It's because their language is just bar. That it's not able to reach that height and pull down that reality out of the invisible. It's not able to do it. The barbarians can't do it. They have lists of shit in their palaces. That's it. Right? So people say even the Romans, and you must realize that the Romans are sitting at the feet of the Greeks. All of those Greek colonies in Italy, they're the ones bringing them their own alphabet, right? It's a Greek woman, supposedly, that brought the Italians, the Latin tribe, their alphabet because they didn't have one because they're too busy building huts and stuff, you know? So Latin really sits at the feet of Greek.
Mm.
And
what that
yeah,
that whole situation there, because obviously we get Spanish from Latin. There's a lot of roots, obviously, and we know that Latin comes from Greek, ancient Greek language. So at what point was this happening? Like I'm sure it was like a couple of 100 years, maybe, or more. I don't know.
no, and the people who posit the existence of Indo-European, they're the ones who tried to figure out what you're asking, like which language is coming from which. And I know
Okay.
Spanish and French. They're Romance languages, right? There. So these people put together in the 1800s, early 1900s, they're putting together a picture of where all these languages come from. And it looks like Greek and Latin are both related to the same mother tongue that who knows what the hell it is. We'll call something Indo-European, but we don't have any proof for existence. All of that theoretical stuff is just theory.
Okay.
It's just theory. What do we have as evidence for the languages? Right? How do we know what comes? That's all we've got. Whatever they wrote that we kept, that's managed to freaking survive. That's all we've got to represent what those cultures were doing literarily with the logos. That's it. And what we find is all over Italy, there's little tiny dialects that drizzle out over time, and Latin becomes stronger as Greek protects it around in these little colonies, these little Greek colonies, because the Greeks are already literate. Nobody is literate before the Greeks. And when I say that, I mean literature. I don't mean written words. You can have written words, right? And people don't understand there's only 19,000 unique words in Egyptian. Everybody thinks
19,000.
19,000. You can find that on the TLG. The TLG has all of those stats. And there's only 19,000 unique word forms. Oh my God, that's nothing. How can you have a vocabulary with that? You have to ask yourself why it is that the Greek literature survives so abundantly. It's obvious because it's the language that had the best adaptability, the best suitability. It was the easiest used to get you the best bang out of, right? And it just squashes other languages. So knowing that, all we can say is, yeah, Latin was there developing, and the Greek was influencing it somehow. Do they use similar words? Yeah, they do. Do they have a common parent? Maybe, right? What does that say? That's not very satisfying.
Yeah.
All we really have evidence-wise, and I'm kind of weird about this because most classicists are not going to argue this, but I'm going to argue that all we really know about antiquity is coming through these words, that you really can't get into their minds without these words. That's the key. And so that's really all the evidence we have. We can look at their buildings, we can look at their archaeology, great. But if you want to know what they were really existing and living for and being, then you have to get into those words. And that's why philology is so important, because if you don't do that, you can create anything you want. You can create a religion around a guy that was killed for the sake of being some kind of trafficker, and you can build a religion out of him. Mm-hmm. Right? You can influence things. You can change history. You can use propaganda. And they were fighting. Part of what classicists don't see is that the drive in antiquity for purifying the language and keeping the purest language, which is essentially saying the most complex and the best adapted tool, right? That's it. Keeping things at that level is the object of civilization. And if you don't have that, your civilization breaks down. And I know nobody would agree with that today. Nobody's going to say, you mean your civilization is only there because of your language? Unfortunately, that seems to be the reality. No, because they're trying to purify it all the time in antiquity.
But can you first give me just this golden nugget, please? Which is people think that in ancient Greece, sometimes in discussions I have, that they were like kind of illiterated, like people at that time doesn't know how to read, how to write, and so what do you think about that idea?
If people were illiterate or largely illiterate, we would not have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages of Greek. If they were illiterate, they must not have been going to the libraries they were building, and they must not have been involved in education, because 1/3 of the earliest Greek education is language. So to say that they were illiterate is just, it's usually the monists who do that. Christian people who have a Christian education, Western Christian education, tend to float that stupidity out there. But it's not true. We wouldn't have all these documents if they didn't. And they just haven't read anything from antiquity, because that's all, dude, that's all the kids' education is. They have to be able to read Homer, dog, right? And there's music involved there. And when we're done with that, we're going to go get naked and wrestle. So welcome to the ancient world.
Beautiful. Everything that is happening in the scientific scene, like scene or whatever, what the edge of it sounds much alike as what they were talking about, like about especially the pre-Socratic, like the whole idea of the multidimensional stuff, the timelines and all of that. It was.
Yeah, why are they? This is something maybe you can help me on this, because I've never heard, like, I've asked people, I've never heard like a decent explanation. But all these mathematician, like you were saying, pre-Socratic kind of philosophy / magic driven group, these people who are into the religions too, and some of them don't eat meat, some of them, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they follow the mysteries. These people consistently talk about traveling through time. And it was annoying. When I first started reading it in Greek, I was like, it's annoying. And after a while, I was like, Jesus, I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, some guy like Pythagoras, who's the genius, who's bringing into words a squared plus b squared equals c squared, just to a basic principle of geometry. He's bringing it to the world And they're saying that he supposedly is time traveling in the process. How the fuck? Because he lives for like 200 years. His different lives, some say, oh, he lived earlier, some say, oh, he lived later, but they all talk about it like he lived for like 200 years. And the Greeks noted, right? Oh, it's he went into a cave at a certain point. These philosophers, they're going into caves and traveling through time. And I don't know if it's because they're high on something that they're dealing with in the caves, because you don't go to the cave. Who's in the caves? The oracles, right? The priesthoods, the Melissae, right? The Melissae, very infamously, the priestesses of Demeter, the bees, right? That's where they go, is the cave. That's where the Echidnaic priesthood originates from, the cave. And that's where those caves are in Thrace that are have the Bacchic pillars around them. You go into this cave and it looks like a vagina. You go into it. And what were they doing there? Well, I don't know, but it says in the text that that's where their oracles operated.
Mhm.
Cave of
And he was,
Trophonius.
they were
Hmm?
saying also that he was remembering past lives or something like that. The
Right.
other
What the
day
fuck is that all about?
I found that reference the other day. Like he supposedly he remembered that he was a woman, he was a man, he was a child, he was a stone or whatever. Yeah. There was something there that gave us mathematics or philosophy.
That's exactly why it bothers me, because these are people like Pythagoras who are, he doesn't just accept or believe anything,
Mhm.
right? He's all based in science and nature. And I think that's what that modern connection is you're talking about there. It's a natural process we're describing. When we talk about the oracles and three, you're talking about pharmakeia and the oracles. This is a natural process that is something that you can actually do. It's not a belief system. It's not a cultural idea or some, philosophy or something. It's an act
Mhm.
that you can perform. And this act does things that very smart people once said can cause changes in time, that you can project yourself through time.
So now I understand that probably, or I don't fully understand, but probably they were just finding all of this through their connection with nature. So probably that's why they were going to a cave or to a special beach or under the special moon, and because it's all over there, I mean, like it makes so
Yeah,
sense now. And
yeah.
well,
Don't forget though that in the middle of all that, because that sounds kind of fatalistic, like, well, it's just part of nature, so I should be able to reproduce it. It sounds totally fatalistic, but yeah, you're exactly right. It is totally a part of nature. But imagine this now, outside of all of that is one individual who exists through time that you cannot see, but she is there. And she perpetuates the mystery. Right. Now, think about it. They're thinking about this architecture because if they can understand, okay, there's an unseen, what they would call, wait, what they called, not would, what they called the unseen. And that dimension can be manipulated. And all you have to do is come through the initiation to be able to get your worker's permit to where you can then work. Let me give you an example. Vampires. Vampires go right back. And I was just searching for the Mormolucaina, who's this very mysterious lady who loves the blood and bodily emissions of boys. You say, wait a minute, what? Um, I can tell you more about her and how she survives on blood. But if I tell you that she is alive now and then, that she is one of these immortals that lives via the ambrosia, they are around you and they are invisible, but they can be made visible. This is the power of the Magus to make them visible. So, something that they did very well in the Dracula that just came out by Luc Besson, that he he portrayed a female in a state of vampirism where she was heightened, charged sexually. And that was her thing. She was the succubus.
Mhm.
She was living within that disguise. He must have had access to Apollonius of Tyana because he brought that character back completely. Who are these people? I just told you time travel. They're talking about time travel. Well,
Mhm.
remember, all of that is based around the existence of these invisible, other dimensional
Yeah.
entities that are around you all the time. And you can influence those according to their own texts. You can influence those. You can manipulate. And the whole incubus thing is the perfect. That's the heart of all this necromancy stuff that they're doing. Because remember, Circe fox Odysseus. It's a whole part of the deal. If you haven't been there, you haven't been to see the queen. That's the point, right? So, where are
Can we go there? Can we just go there like we said before, like you're connected with the necromancy and these entities that you are talking about now, the succubus, the incubus. Could you give us like a bit of what we're talking about when we are talking about this?
sure? So they're primarily sexual. They say the daimones. They call them daimones, the powers that are in the air, that are invisible, aoratos. Those invisible powers are attracted to certain passions. They don't have eyes or ears. They can't see or smell or feel. What attracts them is passion. What is that inner drive, right? That you have got as a living being, as an organism. You feed off that drive those drives that you have, they have like radiation. Anyway, there's a particular class of the daimones that are drawn by a sexual energy. And people have been writing about them for a long time. Not only did the ancient Greeks write about them, but the Byzantine scholars wrote about them. And like King James wrote an entire work on these different classes of demons, particularly the sexual classes. And where is he getting all of this stuff? He's getting it from antiquity because it's when the language is at its most crisp that they're able to identify and really create the science of demonology, for lack of a better word. But when I say that, you have to understand that those are the powers that cause illness, right? So they're integrated into the medicine, what you and I would call the medicine of antiquity. You mean they're casting out demons when they're performing medical operations? Absolutely. That's a whole part of it, right? And that priestess, if you're a melancholic person, that priestess can cast out that demon for you. It's all a science. She's going to give you some drugs and she's going to perform some kind of operations. They're going to have stuff being fumigated. Shit, you may step on a snake while you're there. You know what I mean? You've got to appreciate all the different levels of medicine, levels of science and tech and medicine that are, included in this one big thing of the mystery. Anyway, the incubus and the succubus are those demons, those powers that are drawn by that sexual energy and that desire. It's not just sexual. I don't mean to sound like a guru and from India or something. I'm not describing some kind of chakra or something. No, no, no. What
Okay.
I'm saying is within the intelligent universe where there is order, what the Greeks called cosmos, there are forces that are charged with carrying out these particular passions. and that these invisible forces can be accessed by what you and I know as the visible. So the whole Bacchic rite leading to Aphrodite, what do you think? Do you think that the Bacchic women are succubi? They have a reputation for being extremely sexually charged, Christed, and carrying around baskets with dildos and snakes in them. They're known for killing people, for sacrificing people. It's just total strangers. They're known for invading communities, right? They're known for hostilities. They're known for taking hostages, particularly. And what do they do with those hostages? Most of them end up dead, but it's what they did to them before they killed them that really matters. Now, is that the type of world that doesn't appreciate life as much? I don't know if you want to make that judgment. I guess you can in this particular case, but this is not the world that we're familiar with. This is what's coming out of the text. And it's just, I can't. All you need to do is look at one ancient formula for a cream that you put on the head of your penis that will cause you to hallucinate once you've introduced it to somebody's rectum or vagina and have entered into coitus with them. This is going to, when you see a description of this, it's not technology that we understand, right? It's involving things that we don't understand. If you want to put yourself in your place, read Aristotle for 10 minutes and realize these fucking people, if it's aliens, I don't care, right? I don't really care anymore. Extra dimensional, I don't care. The fact is they have an access to a knowledge and a technology that we don't. We no longer possess. We no longer use.
That's
yeah.
It's amazing. What is pharmakeia? The concept of pharmakeia.
Pharmakeia is the use of natural elements to affect your surroundings. It is most essentially magic. It is often translated straight up as sorcery. But it is specifically, in all the references that I've seen it is most basically the use of the elements in your environment to manipulate nature in a way that you desire. It is magic. And those elements are the drugs, what you and I would call the drugs. Drugs that are found in plants, drugs that are found in soils, drugs that are found in living venoms. This natural world with its elements can be a tool for manipulating your existence within the cosmos. So let me give you an example. The best example of pharmakeia, and you'll see it associated with this all the time, is the erotic magic. So you want somebody to be attracted to you. Say you're Jason and you're off to seduce Medea. You can use the elements of nature in order to hedge your bets. You can drug her in order to abduct her and rape her and bear children with her. Okay, this is the thought process that pharmakeia facilitates. Most of these things that you call sorcery and witchcraft, they're the use of the natural elements of the world in order to affect an erotic response. So all of the creams, all of the perfumes, all of the salves and ointments that we're going to be using, or that Circe is going to be using, or the Temple of Aphrodite is going to be using, this is the magic, the sorcery that brings us that real mystery. You truly cannot be inspired until you've been manipulated by that witch. And that witch uses pharmakeia. So people would say today pharmakeia is the use of drugs in antiquity, something like that. The use of drugs in antiquity. But because they have a red text that talk about pharmakeia and all the sorceresses that are involved and all the magic that's involved, they don't see the predominance of sex. They don't see the predominance of what they call filtra, the use of specific sex drugs, right? That are meant for one thing. Jason sails to Colchis, right? But before he does, he stops off at Lemnos and he rapes one of the locals. And he does so by drugging her. And why? Because Jason was trained by the greatest Thessalian big cocked centaur that there was. And what was his magic? It was all the drugs. He actually gives her, the Greek says, he drugs her and rapes her. So that's what the language is showing us for pharmakeia. That's who's using it. People think because of medieval images of the witch, they think witchcraft is, some whatever, a pot and a stick and a
Yeah, and when we talk about the witch now, it's like this same thing through time, through all the prohibition or whatever, how the things were changing through time. The witch, like all of this medicine woman became what they will call the witch 1,000 years after, or 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever. These witches, this herbolaria idea, this medicine woman idea that we know now as like I don't know, like the thousands, like the 16th century, like the witches, the hunting
right,
witches or whatever. It's
right.
like this. It seems to be like the same. They became that for the society
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, we lost our image. We lost our image of what all these different pharmacists were. We don't really understand. We think that there were something from, as you said, the 16th, right, century. No, no, no. We're talking about a different time, and we're talking about very different principles, that are floating in the culture, governing. There's nothing weird about a mother going out to her cultivated garden and picking up her opium, um, slashing it and waiting for the milk to drain from it so she can collect it and give it to her daughter because her daughter's having pain during her menstruation. And this is what you do. That's just a part. There's a religious component to that you don't see because the earth there is the giver of that element. And so therefore, what are you doing? You're following Gaia, right? And of course you would, because you're initiated into the great mysteries, right? The Great Mother is what it's all about. You see, there's no, just like we talked about before, generalizations suck, and anybody who gives them to you, they're just full of shit. It's like giving you methodology, right? Screw that. Just give me the evidence. Let me figure out what it says or doesn't say. The the problem is we can't see how witchcraft, sorcery actually function because we're looking through a very hostile lens of Christianity that is portrayed, taken that figure and created for us the modern concept of the witch. Yeah, so it's not fair because all of this stuff is coming through that religious mystery that's being propagated over time. And so, it's studyable, it's traceable. You can examine it, break it down just from I do the words, other people can do the plants, all the plants that are involved. You were talking about the Mithraic liturgy. You got to bring plants.
Can you talk a bit to us about this oracle technology? Can we call it?
Yes, yes. What has emerged through the Greek language is a system for carrying out or executing a mystery. And that system involves the use of instruments that are meant to alter your perception, to guide you from the visible to the invisible. Those different instruments are things like the music, the drug use, the incantation, along with the environment in which the natural location where the oracle is being performed. All of these things influence the imagery that is being brought. Remember, this is all idolatry, the creation of the eidolon, the creation of the image. So this tech that we're talking about when we're talking about oracles is the image that is induced in the person. The initiate becomes born again through this visionary process. Their ability to create an eidolon is absolutely essential as a part of the technology of the rite.
Mm-hmm.
So you may not think that creating a mental image is a part of the technology of a religion, but the religion's mystery performance is meant to bring you that eidolon. That eidolon will purify you. That eidolon will reset you. It'll give you memory. It'll allow you to be able to advance beyond the common. It's an elevation in the same way that the Greek language itself is an elevation of the common. So you cannot distinguish, you cannot take away the language itself from the rite. The very songs themselves include melodies, rhythms that are all essential to create this eidolon in the mind of the participant. Mm-hmm. So the technology that we're talking about is really all focused on bringing that person to that climax, that moment of orgiastic, eye-opening understanding of the cosmos, where you can step outside of yourself, right, and be transported to that invisible reality. It's not so much that you're moving there, it's that you're gaining the ability to visualize it. So that familiarity becomes your new birth. And the process is so well engineered with these tools that it can be administered. The mystery can be administered to as many people as we want. We have a standardized procedure using this technology. We know exactly how to take you off the street and to bring you to the point of new birth and enlightenment. Oh, so yeah.
Yeah, but what you were going to add something?
No, just you got to consider the drugs. Please consider everything, even the motions of the priestess, because part of this is coming through something that we get ends up with us in the 5th century or 6th century as pantomime. Pantomime. So we're getting motions, and we know that some of these magic texts, for example, in the PGM, that those texts have something to do with a sound that has been described as a popping and a hissing. We know that there are certain noises that are incorporated into the rite that you and I maybe just call noises, but for some reason it's important for the person to experience these in order to achieve whatever death and rebirth that the rite is meant to achieve. So these are all technological elements of the rite. If you don't have the right drugs, it's not going to work. If you don't have the right song, it's not going to work. If you don't have the right priestess, one side of the tech that you may want to add that everybody leaves out is that that priestess is providing her own bodily fluids.
Well,
So that's another element of the
that's
tech.
a bit of next question here. Would it will be like how there was a system? I mean, who is this oracle? How that system worked? This oracle is a person that studied to be an oracle. Is randomly choose. How is the system of the oracle?
No, not randomly chosen. So who is the oracle and how did they become oracles? It is a process of education. These are girls who, at a young age, have been dedicated to the temple, right? So either their parents gave them up to the temple as adoptions, or what happened commonly was aristocratic families would give their daughters to the temple because the temple would then enter them into an education in dance, in astrology, in music. And the history that we see the oracles producing is obviously a product of their education. When they come out and say, no, you can't have tyrants, they're not good for your government, right? They have been learning things while they're being educated in the temples. So, and there's all sorts of different temples that will have oracular elements to them. And so a girl is taken and educated for a certain number of years. They say the standard rule for oracles, and you can read this kind of stuff in authors like Plutarch.
Mhm.
The standard rule for oracles was that the first 10 years was their education, the second 10 years was their performance, and the third 10 years was their time where they were in charge of teaching the new members. So you only perform between the ages of 10 and 20. These oracles are between that age gap. That's when they're performing. And after that, they hand it on to the next group. And once they've exited that third decade, they're done. They can go off and do whatever they want. It is essentially a career path. But in the process, as we're told over and over again, they are selected. Not all of these girls who are educated in the system become oracles, oracular priestesses.
Okay.
The selection process for them is more rigorous, and I'll just give you one example. I thought this was interesting. You cannot have a blemish, no facial blemishes whatsoever, no freckles. Freckles meant you can never dance as an oracle, period. That's it. So they had standards like this. Height was another one. No short oracles,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes you think, why? What? Is there something wrong? Does it have something to do with the fact that they're dancing? I don't know. What are their standards? I don't know. But they have all of these. The oracles can't be considered ugly. They have to be beautiful. They have to be closest to the divinity that is possible. So all sorts of
So they were being like, this is a great place that you will send your child to, kind of thing. She will be educated. She since and you are telling us 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. So this is starts like very when they're like
newborns. You can dedicate a newborn.
newborn. Okay, so it's amazing. And so the performing part of it, that what I understand of what we have talked about in the past is this performing 10 years of it. What would that mean?
That's when the priestess is actually composing. What is she doing? She's making song. So she has people who will come to her during the day, and she has a schedule for people to come. And these they have to enter they get one question. It's their one inquiry, historia. It's their one inquiry. And she will produce, composition wise, verse. She'll produce a song in response to their question. Right? And her song will be written down. And that's the oracle. You got yours, get the hell out, right? You have to go through a process of purification. You can't just walk in, right? You're basically vetted in the process. So she is answering all of these inquiries. That's what her job is. But the funny thing is don't forget, they're not distinguishing their religion, their medicine, their science. They're not distinguishing their music. So she becomes elevated when she becomes an oracle. And these elevated positions are what the aristocracy is looking for. Right? That's what they want.
Okay.
Because now she has power. And did you know she becomes sacrosanct? When she becomes an oracle and speaks or sings for the god the first time, she becomes sacrosanct. Right? The Romans preserve this in their Vestal Virgins, right? Those are the oracles that keep the hearth of Rome. And so it's people want it for of course you would want this for your kid, but if your kid has freckles and can't stand the drugs, and we have accounts of them running off the edge of the hill and killing themselves on drugs and whatnot, right? It's
okay. This is a girl that is being trained every day, is like being taught about the logos, probably also music. So the best education you can have. You've been trained physically to be able to, how to physically
dance,
very fit, how to dance. And there's this other very important topic, probably, which is like how to handle drugs, as you said, how to handle that technology that they were using. Let's call it that way, maybe.
Right, and they're having that technology applied to them from birth, right? So, for example, the Echidnaic priesthood, they do the arm slashing and the covering of the wound with the venoms. They're doing this from the time that they're young. I know that let me take that out. I'm sorry.
You're gonna burn the pizza.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna leave it in a couple more minutes. What a knucklehead. I'm sorry. I've read of groups that where I think it was the Bears who worship Artemis. They start at 7, I think it is. And by 7 is the adoption starts at 7. So the mother will raise the child until it's 6, and then they'll go through a ceremony, send him off to the Bears. And the Bears will turn this kid into somebody who by the age of 10 will be able to fight in public, like mixed martial arts fight. So there are different emphases within different priesthoods. That's the priesthood of Artemis, right? That's that.
I hope it is we will have a bunch of different places that they are doing this, or not that much, or everybody was going to specific spots or specific places that we know that the priesthood is. You can bring your little girl to it or whatever. How that. We have some sources talking about that,
how common are these priesthoods? It's so common that just about every king's daughter becomes the head of the priesthood, whatever it is, whether it's a masculine divinity or feminine divinity. And this tradition it permeates the literature. Every aristocrat, every ruling aristocrat's daughter is in these priesthoods. It's priestess so-and-so. It's all these priestesses who are getting traded and abducted. It's all these priestesses that are ending up being responsible for tyrants getting killed. And so, how common is it? I can't give you numbers or quantify it, but I can tell you it's all over Greek literature. There are priesthoods, even if you just look at 5th century Athens and you look at, say, drama. Just go through the dramas of the three biggies, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, and count up the priesthoods that are in it. Right? You're going to be surprised. They're in everything. Yeah. So how common were they? You know, an archaeologist wrote a great work on, I think it was, she was working on temples of Hera, I think it was, and talking about the influence of the priesthoods, because, you know, it looks like the temples of Hera were the first, you know, athletics, really, the first Olympics, that they were doing that kind of stuff with their female priesthoods. So the fact that we have all of these female warriors, all of these females that are involved in combat directly, and you read in the text and you think, well, that's odd. The Greeks are not making a big deal about the fact that this woman is fighting alongside them. All of those priesthoods are contributing not only to military action, but also to like hunting. And they're the ones who are getting involved in the big hunts. The Greeks can't kill their big, scary Caledonian boar or whatever the hell it was without Atalanta being there to be able to spear the thing, because she's the best hunter. Everybody knows that. So, and why would she be? She's one of those fucking aristocrats who can afford to be put into a system and raised through the ranks to the top.
The best training.
To be that cream of the crop. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's training. Where's she getting her training? The Greek chorus itself, don't forget this, the Greek chorus itself is a piece of technology that people don't appreciate. Mm-hmm. It is a religious machine that is meant to purge the audience. And the chorus is working together with the language. They're essentially the priesthood that's representing Dionysus right there on the stage. It's essentially their church, right? It's happening as the priest of Dionysus sits there and oversees it. So all of that tech is being used within the mystery and the performance of these initiations and these healings, and
it seems to be so. Yeah, like when the first time you talked about to me that this was like 6 months ago. First time we talked about, you were talking to me about Clytemnestra, and I've read Aeschylus before. So even when I was talking with you, I was actually reading it again, you know, because of this whole thing, and to try to, but it didn't crack anything to me, to be honest. I was just like reading it again, you know, I'm reading a story. After that, at one time we talked, and you said to me like, now you understand what I asked you about the Dracaena, and you told me like, now you understand why Clytemnestra did what she did and everything. So that kept in my mind for a while, and I think it was like 2 months ago, I picked again the same book, and then I started to read it again. It's such a different, like let's say when this guy, when Agamemnon gets to after the war to his house with this girl, and he's saying like this girl is the only thing he took as the most important thing that he took, like a treasure from Troy or whatever, which was this woman or child, I don't know, like that. It was a woman like Cassandra, you know. So then she starts screaming some stuff. So I read that like 5 times before, but last time I read it, it was like, okay, this is the fucking priesthood we're talking about. I mean, like, what?
She's the daughter. She's the daughter of Priam, the king of Troy.
Exactly, and he took her, and he says that is the most precious thing that he took from after the biggest war ever. And it was this woman, I don't know, maybe wasn't that old, maybe probably she was
Right,
like very
right. She
young.
wasn't. She wasn't. She
I'm
wasn't, but
sure.
she already had, because she was in that 10 to 20 year age, she already had established her reputation as an oracle. Her
Yeah.
brother was also considered a prophet.
Mhm.
And so when she was abducted and taken back, she was the target of the Dracaena. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. She was a competing oracular arm
Mhm.
of the mystery.
Mhm.
And this bozo had brought her into the kingdom, right?
Yes,
Oh my.
yes, 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 yes. I don't know if you remember because I had this conversation with an artist in Athens when we were recording. She is a dancer,
And
and
yeah,
and she asked me, and I gave her a bit of. I mean, I told you what she said to me about the chorus because I was telling her about everything we were being talking about, and she was like blown away about it. She actually had a bit of ancient Greek in because if you are studying in Athens dance, you will have a bit of it. You have to do the tragedies. She was a dancer, and and she told me that the chorus will represent like the mind of the people, like uh, um, everybody that is watching what is going on, kind of thing. Like this is the
yeah.
chorus is
Usually
like
the
the mind of mankind or whatever of the so
It's usually the bridge. It's usually the bridge between the actors and the audience. The chorus is like, okay, sometimes
yeah,
they're the
exactly.
common people on the street. Sometimes it'll be like all of the servants of the queen. It'll be like a chorus of the, it'll be sometimes it'll be a chorus of women who are being brought as slaves back from Troy.
Mhm.
So they all have the same kind of perspective that the audience, it's like the playwright wants you to get your perspective through that chorus. So the chorus comes in and feels the actors out so that the audience can kind of experience the actors through that chorus. Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely. Now, the thing that I like though is it's a process of purification. That's how they describe it. Like that chorus is somehow supposed to be purifying you as you're sitting there watching them. And if you'll notice, they go through transformations. They come to points where they realize what's going on, where the
Yeah. Even
they
in that same situation, like with Cassandra and Clytemnestra, when they are discussing this, the chorus is changing his mind. At some point, it's like at first it's like, are you doing this? So it's not like a just like an omniscient entity.
right,
Like he's
right,
is interacting with the with what is going on.
right. In the Bacchae of Euripides, the
Mhm.
chorus is kind of that springboard for us to be able to experience what the initiate who follows Dionysus experiences. And Dionysus kind of talks back and forward with them. And it's so obvious that you're supposed to, as the viewer, you're supposed to be sucked into that chorus. It's like the point of, where the movie like gets into you and you have a commonality with it. That's exactly, if that's how she's describing it, I'd say that's gorgeous and straight on, beautiful, classical, perfect.
Yeah, and another important thing that makes what we are doing now, and I'm very grateful, is to be able for me to engage again with that text. I needed a bit that if not that I'm trained on it, but a bit of small training, like you need to see what this is about and what, and then you pick up the same thing that you already read and it's completely different what you're reading. I mean, that when I,
Figure out how to translate that to your documentary production
Mhm.
where you're putting the audience in the place of that chorus. Figure out maybe that's what, that's why you're doing that in your mind. Did you go to Clytemnestra's dream, the Dracaena's dream in the Coepheroi, the cupbearers, libation bearers?
No.
Yeah, go to the second in the trilogy after Agamemnon. Go to the second one, and
After Agamemnon,
yeah, go to the second one after Agamemnon is another play, and then the Eumenides. So it's the cupbearers, the Coepheroi, and then the Eumenides. Go to that middle play, and in it you're going to see Clytemnestra have a dream as the Dracaena, and it involves the communion. So.
Okay.
You must see that. Look for the Dragon Queen's dream. That's what I'll say.
Okay, I will.